Steampunk's a really cool style, eh? It's a future of the past that never existed. Ooh! We're going to make a fun little diorama. But how, you ask? Well, through studying real life. You see, there's some really immersive locations in the world that are themed after certain fictional spaces. Just immersive architectural dreams. Notably, in theme parks. But these theme parks are really far away, and it would be very hard for me to analyze them from my desk. It's like I'd need to board a plane or something to even get there. Yep, I flew out to a little place known as Phantasia Land in Germany, which is a 1910 steampunk style theme park. And the best part, I got access to the park after hours to take pictures of all of the cool architectural displays. We're talking scaffolds, we're talking cool lamps with airships. Whoa, how incredible. And most importantly, this building here, which will serve as our main reference point for the architecture that we'll be building today. I am now back home, and I have done a little bit of work here making this sort of 1910 style building to match up with the one that I found in Phantasia Land. You can see on the screen here what I was sort of going for, but this isn't steampunk how it is. We need to add some little gadgets and gizmos to really make this place pop. I also want to expand it out in either direction, and then we can get the composition working, filling it with life and little gubbins. We can then also start working on actually wrecking it a little, because a lot of steampunk comes from the idea of stuff deteriorating and then being repurposed and refurbished. So let's head into a time lapse where I experiment with expanding this out and adding a few more bits and pieces. I built up a replica of what I had just made, but rotating it round a corner a little bit. We are going to be moving this upwards into the sky in a second, because I want this to be a multi-story build. It's also going to be fun to work on the composition of this, because I have a few plans as to some very overly large pieces of equipment we're going to fit in here. I paved the road using a brick technique that I absolutely love, using large staircases instead of your usual brick textures, though I did go back and dot those in, as well as some clays and terracottas, and a final highlight around the rim with jungle wood. I want to fill up these windows with some life to make it look more like a lived-in street, and I want to add some gadgets connecting up these bits specifically, and we've got some over here as well, and I'm going for a very asymmetric approach. I'm also thinking that these buildings are currently a little bit too generic and samey to look at, and I want to add some pizzazz by clamping some more steampunky structures to their frame, like cogs and other machinery that's all tethered together. If you've seen my cyberpunk video, then you've seen me use this little trick where you can actually connect up two pieces of lever here with a chain, and it sort of clamps in this cabling effect, and I'm wondering if we can connect up these bits with something similar. I'm not currently thinking where I'm placing these, and I'm just sort of experimenting with what bits and pieces I can put around, and then I'll move them around and have actual composition involved. I am pretty sure I want to have a cog coming out here though, so let's experiment with how that's going to look. Because if I can make half of a cog here, then I can just copy over each side and put it elsewhere. Let's start out with a center here and work from there. And this should just connect up nicely like that. Nope, I've done it wrong. Like that. There we go. That is a nice side of a cog. And there we go. That looks like it's going into the machine. We are going to connect this up, of course, and I want to have it going across to sort of have maybe even a bigger cog here would look good, so that the teeth are sort of connected as if it's flowing across these two buildings. Now, I want the hinge point of this to go into the wall instead of ending and like going up, because this has more structural security if it has its central of mass closer to the wall. So this is roughly as big as we've got to get with this one. I kind of want to have it so that there is a central ring as well inside of this bigger one. There we go, that's good. That's a bit like fan jutter bits. Oh, we could add fans! There's been a big love of fans recently in Minecraft, and they could add a little bit of the movement we're trying to get here. And now that we've got this big cog in place, we can add some of them. I have mapped out 2 spots here for some funny fans, as well as perhaps doing a larger one here. I'm not sure about that because I don't want it to pull too much attention to the left side here, but I've been experimenting with some funny little knickknacks that I can fit in there instead. Let's move up here into this nice patched up area where we can build the first fan in this sort of mechanization of steampunk. So this has been all the rage in Minecraft at the moment. It's a real industrial revolution of itself in the game, where people are figuring out how to make different elements of their build move. We are using observers that are reading an update in this block and then sort of shuffling that update around the block so it is constantly updating, and I've now created a loop where a redstone signal is bouncing around between these, and so as you can see here, it'll bounce around in a spiral, and if we add some trapdoors into the mix, they start to flap. And if we position them correctly, we can sort of hide the fan element. We've now got a fan blade at the top there. Now I'm going to swap out what kind of trapdoors these are. We have got a variety of colours we can pick from here. I think that the bamboo might be a good contrast to the rest of the area. You can see how in relation to the rest of the build, that just draws focus, and that's a little bit of a pop on the right side. Now we've got to balance this out composition wise, because this is very right heavy, and let's put a larger one on the left. So how I'm thinking of this composition wise is that it's a little bit like a seesaw. If there's something further out on the right side, we need to put something either the same distance on the left side, or if we want it closer to the middle, it has to be bigger and thus sort of draw your eye in as heavier. So now you can see we've got a cycle going here, and this is going to be one fan blade running round. Now if we activate this a second time in quick succession by doing a little bit of this, I think that looks really good. In fact, I think this is a perfect opportunity to pipe whatever fuel we're generating from that and then sort of whoop it in this way. Now I've done a little bit of thinking as to what I want to put here, and I thought, what is more steampunk than an airship charging through this building? Either it's been mounted to it or it is literally breaking through, but I think that that's a really fun idea and would add a little bit of life and less rigid structure to the area. And speaking of life, I also think I want to add a vehicle of some sort, but in order to look at that I would have to go back to Germany, and there's no way I'm gonna do that. Well, I'm back, and here is a bunch of buildings that are themed specifically around airships. But let's talk the real vehicles. We have got some floating airships up in the sky here, as well as some automobiles. You can see that the frame of the vehicle is just out in the open, which is really cool to see, with all of the pipes and steampunky goodness on show. I absolutely love this truck. So let's see if we can take some inspiration here whilst working on our vehicles. I started off by building out the overall shape for the aircraft. I wanted this to be jutting out of the wall, almost clamped to it as a display, and working around it using different materials to add the highlights and different areas of shading that the light in the actual environment would be hitting. I really enjoyed adding this almost organic shape to the side of this quite square building. I then moved and added a back section as this little end of the alleyway just to bring attention to the open air above it where the cogs are. I didn't want it to just lead into nothing, so I built up these tiny little cogs on the building as well. Alright, so I have built up this airship here, sort of sticking out as if it's mounted there. I like the idea that it was sort of perhaps even like there to draw in customers on the street to this shop and just be a nice appealing storefront. There's another cog up there just to add to this composition. Now I know that these center bits aren't actually connected to anything, so the cogs wouldn't be useful, but I just think it looks really cool. And speaking of looking really cool, you may have noticed these side walls where I've sort of encapsulated some mural-esque design and trim of additional cogs made of dark wood, just to add this frame and really help to sell the fact that this is a diorama and a little cut of this old-timey, non-existent, funny, steampunky world. But I'm inspired by all of those cars we saw, and I would like to try and recreate something similar to it in this space here, just to fill up the street a bit more with a bit of that charm. So how about I do a fun little transition here and explain my thought process through the vehicle. Here we go. 3, 2, I hope you're strapped in and ready. 1, let's go! Whoa, here it is. I hope that transition worked. I don't know how well it worked. But we have got a pretty cool car here. As you can see, this is sort of what I was going for. I have connected up the front here with this sort of railing effect. As these cars don't really have bumpers, you can almost see the actual frame of the car and its interior. And speaking of interior, we have a funky little engine here. I really like how looms work for engines. I think that these sort of encapsulate the metal rods that really is what this car is all about. And then we have the actual driver's seat in here where you would sit and be enclosed in this sort of space looking over the engine. And I just think that this works really well. It's got a cool red stripe. I added that because I thought it would just be like, you know, it's fun. It's fun. And now we've done vehicles. I think this place is looking very, very good. There's just one little element that I want to add to this display. See, this is all very outdoors, very in the city, and we don't have any interior work. And so the reason I've brought this all up by a bit is I wanted to highlight how you can do a steampunk interior down at this bottom area. I mean, to analyze a steampunk interior, I sort of need to go back to Germany, though, and I never... Okay, let's look at some interiors. Mainly the hotel room, which itself is designed to be this little aircraft hangar, sort of submarine, and was a perfect example of how steampunk not only doesn't hide all of the structural supports of the architecture, but puts them on full display, being proud of the fact that there are bars literally everywhere. And you can see here tons of little knickknacks around the room on the walls. Okay, now that we've analysed the hotel room and all of the interior areas, we can have a look at this, and I want this to really have the movement. It's a nice long area, so I was thinking some chest minecarts running along through here would look pretty darn cool. The main thing I picked up from it is that all areas should be as compact as possible with the most storage that it can use at a time, and making the actual structural integrity of the build as visible as possible with pipes and support beams all along it, and then have the carts run along it in a big circle, and I think that that will be quite fun. I've been loving the use of lightning rods and chains together to make these poles. Stack up some more barrels. Maybe even a little bit of a chest boat could be funny to stick in there. And let's see how these look going around the track. I did not connect up the track. And now they're all going the wrong way. Okay, let's try this one more time. Alright, that should be a complete circuit. Oh, that's so cute. Okay, there we go. The build is complete. we have our funny little display case here with our airship, our lovely 1910 style buildings, our car, our fans, our cogs, and then of course the little railway down in the storage bay. And it all comes together to be brilliant. I am really glad I made this trip out to build in the steampunk style, and there are many other styles in Phantasia Land, so if you want to see me analyze some other ones and build similar dioramas, then let me know down in the comments below, and I will be sure to make the trek out. I already have the footage. And I know that this is very intricate with lots of little gubbins, and I didn't really go into adding all of these little bits and pieces in here, and more focused on the actual style as a whole. But if you want to see a video where I do go into the gubbins and build them piece by piece, then click on this video here, where I talk about cyberpunk and build up a cyberpunk city. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a subscription, and I will see you next Saturday for another video. We're almost at 5k subscribers now, which is insane, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!